Lesson 7.3, page number 517, General Applications of Percent. This is a very, very short lesson here, just 4 examples, but let's go over them. In the last lesson, I told you that of is multiply and is equal. That's not changing. But one of the things that we're going to run into in this section is sometimes you're not given an of or an is, and you have to use a little bit of logic to figure out what we're looking for so that you can write it as an of or an is kind of a problem. So for example, example 1 on page 517 says we've got a 120 question test. If a student answered 96 correct, what percentage or what percent of the problems did the student work correctly? So we do have the word of there, so that helps. So we can at least write that part. What percent of what? The problems. Well, how many problems were there? There were 120. So we have the of. So we know that because we're multiplying those, we've got to have an is somewhere. So we've got to put an equal sign or we can't do anything. Is, and then we put the other number that they give us in the problem as our is what. So what percent of 120 is 96? And that's what we're interested in. So then we go and write it as x times 120 equals 96. Divide both sides. X equals 96 over 120, which is 0.80. We change that into a percent because that's what we're looking for. So we move the decimal place over 2, and we get 80% there. So that wasn't too bad. Let's look at some that may be a little bit trickier, but hopefully they won't be too bad either. Example 2, how much HCl, which is hydrochloric acid, is in a 60 milliliter bottle that is marked 80% HCl? Alright, so how much HCl? So we're looking for how much of HCl, okay? So X, that's the quantity, or the amount that we're looking for. Is, oh, there's an is. And then we've got to multiply two numbers together. Well, the only two numbers they give us is a 60 and an 80%. So those are the numbers we're going to multiply. So X equals 60 times, and remember we can't multiply by a percent, we have to change it to a decimal first. So X equals 60 times 0.8, which is 48. So what we're saying here is 80% of 60 is 48, and that's how much of our HCl we have. Alright, if we look at example 3 on page number 518, 48% of a certain college are female, and there are 2,400 female students. What is, so what is the total number of students in the college? So we're looking for X. What is? Alright, so let me erase this real quick and let's look at it. Look at what we've got at the top. 48% of the students. So 48% of the students. What are the students? Those would be the guys and the girls. So 48% of all the students what about that for? Oh, are female. So equals female. Okay, so 48% of the total students are female, and how many female? 2,400. So what we're looking for is, obviously in the question, what is the total number of students? That's why I put an X there. So really, they're going to give you your X times a number equals a number. Alright, every one of these is the same. They will give you two numbers and ask you for something. The question is, how do those three relate? The variable and the two numbers. So in this one, The percent times the variable equals the number of females. So we change this to 0.48. Divide by 0.48. You divide that out, 2,400 divided by 0.48, and you'll end up with X equals 5,000. So out of the 5,000 students, 2,400 are females. And that brings us to the last example here. Example number 4. We've got 25% of students in elementary algebra get an A. There are 300 students enrolled. How many students will receive A's? Okay, so I'm looking for the number of students that get A's. 25% of 300 will get A's. So 25% of 300 give me A's, right? So I don't know how many that is, but I know that 25% of them. So 0.25 times 300 equals X. Multiply 0.25 times 300 and we get 75 equals X. So 75 students out of those 300 will get A's. Okay. So not too bad. Let's look at the problem set. Problem set 7.3 on page 519. So let's look at number 4. A family spends $450 every month on food. If the family's income each month is $1,800, so their total income is $1,800, they spend $450, what percent of the family's income is spent on food? So, what percent of the family's income is spent on food? Well, 450 of it. So, of the family income, 450 is spent on food. So, what percent of the total family income is $450? So, we go ahead, divide by 1,800, divide by 1,800, and we end up with X is 450 divided by 1,800, which would be 0.25, and we have to change that because the question says, what percent of? So we need to change that to a percent. And that gives us that. Okay? So, not too bad there. Let's look at number 10. Talking about tips. Suppose you decide to leave a 15% tip for services after your dinner. No, let's skip that one because that has to do with number 9. So that means going back and reading through that and understanding that. Let's go to 13 on page 520. According to the U.S. Census Bureau data, for the number of marriages in 2004, approximately 31.2% of the whole bunch there, 31.2% of the 109,830,000 males age 15 or older have never been married. How many males age 15 or older have never been married? So, 31.2% of the 109,830,000 have ever been married. So how many is that? Well, we take 31.2% times that, and that gives us our total number that have never been married, which ends up being 34,266,960. Hopefully that number is, most of those people in that number are less than 18. But anyway, that's problem set 7.3.